Welcome to the channel, welcome to the channel, welcome to the channel, yeah. Greetings and salutations, my lovelies. It is the 25th? Anyway, it's still a few more days left in Blackoween in October, but I'm done. I finished my last book for Blackoween-a-thon. This is a Readathon hosted by Bree over at Lock Booktition. This year wasn't active, but a whole bunch of us still read for it, and I kind of was hyped. I was so hyped for it because I only have one location left, and once you do all the locations in Tulis Parish, which is a fictional place for Blackoween-a-thon, you become the Grand Searcher. I read all my prompts in my last location, and I am officially the Grand Searcher of Tulis Parish. So I'm super duper excited, super happy. We're gonna talk about what I read for the Laissez-Faire streetcar. While I wait, I'm sitting in the parking lot at my kid's school because you see all those cars? I'm not gonna back out all those cars. I always wait because the car loop is insane. Okay? And my children's school is so busy that they had to open up 2 car loops. And my kindergartner likes me to walk her to the door every day. So I just wait in the parking lot until all this nonsense is done. So I thought, let's make a video. Let's talk about some books. So in a previous video, my mid-month check-in, I had only finished one book when no one is watching. And I had a good time, even though it was a little bit problematic. But who isn't these days? Then I was halfway through a classic for my classic prompt, and that was Native Son. So let's talk about Native Son. I had DNF'd Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, and I switched to Native Son by Richard Wright, and this one was way more up my alley. It was more plot based. It was still 500 pages, and there was still lots of the writing was still very much from the time. It was written in the 1940s. But it was way more plot driven, and when we were with the character in his head, it was moving the plot. Even when he was kind of thinking about things, it was way more focused and plot driven, so I could get down with it. It's basically about a character called Bigger, and he is kind of stuck in the cycle. It's set in the 1930s. It's kind of stuck in the cycle of I'm black, I'm poor, I'm uneducated, I don't have a lot of options, I get treated a certain way, so I'm going to act a certain way, and he gets a job. He lives in a 1-bedroom horrible apartment that the white people hike up the rent in the bad area because nobody lets the black people live anywhere else except for in this one neighborhood. And sorry, the sun decided to come out, and now it's messing with everything. Hello, sun. Nope, that's not gonna work. Okay, we're just gonna deal with it because the sun. We need the sun. The sun. Okay, maybe this will be better. Let's do this. Okay, so the sun is here. The lighting is now this. Anyway, now that the sun is blinding me, and we're just gonna go with this. Anyway, so he gets a job, finally. He doesn't have to be thieving and out there in them streets taking wallets. And on Homie's first day, the feces hit the fan, and he's kind of thrust into this path of violence. He accidentally kills somebody, and she's white, so of course, and he tries to hide it. He tries to blame it on other people. He tries to come up with a ransom scheme, but homeboy's just not that smart. Like, he's trying. He's really trying, because he knows that if they don't care if it was an accident, you know, they're gonna extrapolate what happened. And so he's trying to, like, avoid his fate, but it's almost inevitable. So he's on the run. There's a manhunt. There are all these things. And then he just decides kind of, well, they think that I'm a criminal. They think I'm this. They think I'm that because I'm black. I never had a chance. So I might as well just keep going down this road of crime. So he does a whole bunch of other horrible things. And then he gets arrested. And it focuses, and then, like, the first part is, like, setting it up, his life, the deed. The second part is him trying to, like, get out of it, running away. The third part focuses more on, like, the trial and how, unfair the justice system is. I mean, even though he did it, like, he did it, but they didn't care the circumstance of why he did it. And then they basically said because, like, he's black, he must have sexually assaulted the woman, and he must have done all these other crimes that he didn't do. And it talked about, like, race and how white people don't understand what oppression feels like, because there was a lot of white people in the book who were like, oh, you gotta, you know, live, you gotta fight this, and he's just like, I'm going to get the chair. Like, it doesn't matter what you say in court. It doesn't matter how this goes down. Like, I am gonna get the chair. Like, I am going to the electric chair. Like, it doesn't matter. And like, these white people just didn't get it because they don't understand what it's like to be black in America. Period. So, I mean, for the time it came out, because it came out in the 1940s, and I do feel like there was this idea of what black people were, the black experience, and a lot of white people didn't know. So it definitely talks about race in a way that at the time in the 1940s that I'm sure white people just didn't have the concept of what it's like to be black. And what's interesting is there's a lot of conversations happening in this book that are relevant to now. Police brutality, you know, oppressing black folks, kind of the cycle of poverty and the cycle of oppression, generational trauma, how that passes down to us now, melanated folks in our time, of how, you know, the curse of not being able to build generational wealth, being seen as a person. So it's interesting when you read kind of older books, and even though, you know, we've come so far, it's the same. There are so many things that are still the same, that have not changed. And who knows? And nowadays, it's like, we can't get into that. We can't talk about that. So that fits the classic prompt. I filled the unreliable narrator prompt. Then I read a book that covers a couple prompts. I read The Wife of Gods by Quay Quarty. This is a kind of police procedural following a guy from Ghana, and basically it covers traveling, the traveling prompt, and it covers outside the US. So that's 4. Yeah, that's 4. This book was my favorite of the month. It talked a lot about, what it's like not in the U.S., and that's the point of the prompt. So it follows this cop. He's got to go solve a murder, and it's kind of in his like childhood hometown or his family's hometown. His aunt still lives there, but it's kind of this juxtaposition between kind of the old ways in Ghana and then modernizing. It does this in a couple of different ways, because a lot of the things he finds in this village are just because they are still kind of stuck in their old ways of doing things. There are these priests that basically take wives that are underage and do bad things to them, and they say, well, you have to give me your daughters because we need to appease the gods. And then so there's that. They talk about the AIDS crisis. They talk about sex education, trying to give women more rights. The main character has to struggle between, him being true to his heritage, but also realizing like, hey, we have to kind of progress past some of these things that we kind of know now are not good practices. Like, even with his own mother-in-law, like, his son was born with a heart defect, and his mother-in-law, who's old, was like, oh, I'll just take him to a healer, we'll just go to like a healer. And he's kind of like, girl, we need a surgeon. He's got a hole in his heart. Going to a healer and doing some rituals isn't gonna fix the hole in his heart. We need a surgeon. And she's like, nah, I'm gonna take him anyway. So there's a lot of that. And then solving the murder. And then there's also like another layer of the reason why he wasn't in his home village was because his mom disappeared. So it's got layers. It's got multiple characters, and you're in the POV of different characters a lot. But I liked it. I immediately went and got like the second one in the series. I love the writing. I like the characters are complex. They're, it was kind of good to get like a perspective that's not in America from the diaspora. So that was a good time. So that's 4 probs. I'm trying to, what is my, time jumps. I read a book that I had DNF'd in the past. I had tried to read this previously in Blackoween in years past. I read When the Reckoning Comes, and it has lots of time jumps. So we're going in the past. We're following the characters when they're teenagers, when they're kids, and when they're grown-ups. It also, there are kind of flashbacks to like slave times. So When the Reckoning Comes is basically following this woman and her kind of group of friends. She gets a call from her childhood friend saying, hey, I'm getting married. I want you to come. Oh, and by the way, it's on a plantation. And the friend is white. The main character is Black, and she's just kind of like, what? Why? What? Why is it on a plantation though? But why? And so at first she's like, I'm not going to go to this crap. But then her other childhood friend is kind of like the one that got away. So she's kind of like, oh, I'm going to go back for this homie, you know, to see, you know, if we could rekindle some whatever teenage love romance, whatever. So basically she goes to this white lady's wedding at a plantation, and of course it goes wrong. Like, it's on a plantation. We can't think that we're gonna have a horror book on a plantation and stuff's not gonna go wrong. So I think that this book, the idea of it was great, but I feel like the execution failed. We do have a lot of time jumps, and it does but I feel like a lot of times we focused a lot on, oh, this is what happened when we were kids. And it didn't really focus on what was happening in the present. And I don't feel like the time jumps actually helped. I mean, they did and they didn't. There were a couple that were like, oh, okay, this is setting the scene for what happens now. And yes, it's absolutely relevant, but some of them were just not. We didn't need a flashback to sitting on the bus, you know? I don't think it really helped the story at all. I think there were a couple that you needed to kind of get the context of how Black people were treated in this southern town, how they treat this plantation, and setting it up because the plantation's haunted. And people keep like, you go on the property, you die. Bad stuff happens. Homegirl is having hallucinations. Like, she's walking around the plantation and she's seeing what she thinks are reenactments, but they're not, I think. Like, it was never really fully fleshed out because she keeps seeing all these things happening and she thinks they're reenactments, but they're really ghosts that are showing her like the history of the cruelty of this plantation. But half the time you're kind of like, girl, are you hallucinating? Like, did you take the good drugs? And then, like, the homie she's with is like, yeah, I see it too. But then he's like, nah, I didn't see crap. I was just kind of going with whatever you said because I trust you or whatever. And it's like, what? Like, so I feel like even though, like, sometimes we get the perspective, like, a chapter will be from the ghost's, like, point of view, and they're, like, a collective thing. Like, they, we. But I just feel like that the concept could have been developed a little better. It could have been fleshed out a little better because I like the idea of it. But the execution for me was not that great. But it was like a 3. Like, it wasn't terrible. I do feel like it was disappointing, like, how the ending went. And it wasn't very clear of, okay, like, are these ghosts actually, like, here? Is she hallucinating? Is she in a fever dream? And the ghosts, like, do stuff, but, like, they don't at the same time. Like, it has this buildup, like, we're gonna kill all the ancestors of the people who own the plantation and the people in the town who were super racist. But then nobody dies. Like, I mean, a couple people do, but, like, not really. And it's kind of just like, if you're gonna sell me a slave revenge story, like, give it to me. Give it to me. It was just kind of anticlimactic. So anyway, I also didn't like, okay, so summing up my Blackoween experience, I did have another book that I was halfway through. It was Kosoko Jackson's The Forest Demands Its Due. And I got like halfway through that book. It was like 400 pages. I got to like 200 and something. And I was just so confused. Like, it had creepy forest vibes. It had everything I would want in like a horror. But the magic system wasn't fleshed out. The plots didn't make any sense. The writing wasn't my style. I've tried to read Kosoko Jackson a few times, and I just think his writing is just not for me, personally. And I was sad because I liked the ideas that were in there, but it just wasn't fully plotted out. Like, I'd be reading it and something would happen, and then I'd be like, whoa, like I would have to like go and reread certain sections because I'm like, am I missing something? Like, did I just, because it started out one way and then all of a sudden he's got magic shooting out of his hands, and I'm just like, when did he get mad? Like, it was just not, like I said, I liked the idea of that book also, but I just couldn't finish it because I'm like, if you're going to sell me a magic system and you're going to sell me a plot, it was just too many things. It's like, you wanted to have haunted forest, gods, magic, a curse, a PWI. Like, it was just too many ideas without one cohesive thing binding everything together. And then the curse itself didn't make sense. And even the character, like, I felt like the character while I was reading it, because he was just like, nobody's telling me anything, I'm confused. And I'm like, same, brother, same. And maybe that was the point, like, he's confused and doesn't know what's going on, so we can't know, as the reader, we can't know what's going on, but it just pissed me off, so I stopped reading it. Okay, I just can't. Ain't nobody got time for that. So, summing up, I had a good Blackoween. I'm glad I finished Laissez-Faire Streetcar. I'm glad that I am the Grand Searcher, officially. I have a couple of, like, layover books that, because I'm just kind of still in the mindset of wanting to read horror and spooky books by Black people. So I'm just going to continue. I will say that a trend in a lot of the books that I was reading was a little disconcerting to me. I really don't like the idea of, okay, things happen to Black people and we're just going to gaslight them and say they're unreliable. Like, that theme was across the board in a lot of the books that I was reading this time of, yeah, girl, nothing bad is happening to you, you're just crazy. Or, yeah, boy, nothing's happening to you, you're just crazy. And I don't like that. I don't like that as a plot device in horror or crime fiction, I guess. And I guess it's different when it's, like, directed at Black people, because as Black people, we get gaslit our whole lives. Sorry, I was about to cuss. And maybe that was the point, but sometimes I feel like it's like, I don't need, we get gaslit in real life with, like, microaggressions and, oh, you're just pulling the race card, when we're like, no, it just be like that. Like, it just be like that. And making you feel crazy. So I was like, I don't need that in my books, too. And I feel like that was a recurring theme in the books that I was picking up this time. And that's never 100% happened before. And also, what comes along with reading a lot of crime fiction by Black people, because of how publishing is and what stories they decide are worthy of publishing, you do just get a lot of Black trauma. So sometimes when I read stuff for Black, I just get sad. It makes me depressed, because a lot of what drives horror in the Black experience is literally just your existence, just being alive. And you don't get the same in any other horror books, because that's not the experience. So it's like, unfortunately, it's hard to separate that feeling when you're writing as a Black person, writing a horror book, of course you're going to write what you fear, what you're afraid of, your life experience. And a lot of that is rooted in the Black experience and racism. So, and I get why it's hard to separate those things, but sometimes I don't want to be traumatized. I'm already traumatized in real life, you know. So that's why I liked reading the Wife of Gods, because it wasn't completely rooted in the Black American experience of just trauma and I mean, it was still, stuff was happening, but it wasn't rooted in the, oh, I'm getting treated like crap because I'm Black. It was, oh, I'm a cop and I have to go solve this murder. And bad stuff happened to me, but it wasn't a result of just being Black. So, anyway, sometimes Blackoween makes me depressed, but I still had a good time. I read some authors that I wouldn't have read otherwise. I found probably one of my new favorite authors, and I'm going to go read their backlist. So it was still a good time, just heavy. But what can you do? But that was my Blackoween. I hope y'all had a good Blackoween. Thank you for dealing with the sun. And have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.